In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. I'm Dave Burke. We're joined by the man himself, Dave Lapham. And this is all brought to you by First Star Logistics. Make sure if you're looking for a new career, check out firststarlogistics.com. Dave, the Cincinnati Bengals, it's a Sunday. No rest for the weary. The NFL season is upon us. First preseason game, less than a week away. And they were on the field working hard again on this Sunday.
No question about it, Dave. They had a day off yesterday. They had a day off on Saturday. But at Friday's workout, Frosty Rucker showed up with his son. And Frosty Rucker, of course, played, I think, 14 years total in the National Football League with the Bengals, with the Cardinals, and whoever else. And Frosty had a very, very long and productive career. He wanted to come back and see what's going on in Cincinnati. So the fact that the Bengals made the run that they made last year all the way to Super Bowl 56 has a lot of alumni interest. There's no question about it. Guys are coming in from various parts of the country for various reasons, and a couple of very interesting guests today. Adam Pac-Man Jones was there. He was doing some things with Sirius NFL Radio, and he had his son with him. He had his wife with him, and he had Chris Henry's son was there as well. Chris's son is like 6'3.5", 6'4", about 185 pounds, and he's going into his freshman year in high school. And I'm telling you now, he is chiseled. The gene pool is very, very strong. It looks like the late, great Chris Henry spit him out. It's unbelievable. Looks like he's his twin, not his son. And he is very, very gifted. Adam Jones had video he was showing me about with Adam with Chris Henry's son running routes against a guy that's going to be a freshman in the college ranks, an accomplished cornerback, and Chris is just beating him like a drum, running routes, getting in and out of cuts. Even as tall as he is, he's very, very smooth. He's got a very, very deceptive gait when he runs. He gets in and out of his cuts. He doesn't drop anything. I mean, this kid going into his freshman year in high school already has multiple offers. Now, he can't sign, obviously. He can't sign it with anybody. But there's a lot of interest in Chris Henry, who is a wide receiver, accomplished like his dad for sure, or could be that type of receiver. There's no two ways about it if he keeps progressing and ramping up like he seems to be doing. So that was an interesting guest. Adam Jones was in the locker room doing some interviews with various and sundry NFL players with the Bengals, offensively, defensively, filling up some programming for Sirius NFL Radio. And also Mike Zimmer was at practice, former defensive coordinator with the Cincinnati Bengals and head coach with the Minnesota Vikings. And it was great to see Zim. His son Adam is on the defensive coaching staff, and he was with his dad obviously up in Minnesota. But when his dad got let go by the Vikings, Mike Brown decided to bring him down to Cincinnati and put him on the Bengals staff. So Adam Zimmer will be with the Cincinnati Bengals this year. And I said to Mike, I said, Zim, I'm sure you had opportunities, and Frank Reich with the Indianapolis Colts, talked to him about being a defensive consultant and that sort of thing. But he decided to take the time off. And this is, I said, this is the first fall since when that you have not had anything to do with football? He said, probably 8th grade. Maybe, I don't know, it might be in 8th grade. I was doing some stuff in the fall for football. I don't know, but he said it's back there. You got to go back a ways. So it's a very, very different fall for Mike Zimmer. He was spending time also down at his camp. He's got, I don't know how many, 180 acres, I think he said he owns down in Kentucky, about a half hour from Paul Brown Stadium. And he's got a pond on that property. He's building a lake. He's got 3 big, huge machines moving dirt, building a lake down there that, he'll stock. He's an avid fisherman and an avid hunter. And so Mike Zimmer's living the good life. There's no question about it. But in my opinion, do not think he's necessarily out of football. I think if the right opportunity presented itself, he'd be back into the National Football League in a heartbeat. I think he's been in the NFL for like 27 years, if I'm not mistaken. And in talking to him, it was very interesting. I was watching, practice and checking out the defensive side of things. And, I said, Zim, over the years, what's the common denominator for successful defenses that you've had? You had a lot of them at different places. done it more than one place. And was there a specific formula? Was it different at different places? He said, well, the one common trait, he said, successful defenses. When we were here in Cincinnati, it was a great example of it. Unbelievable cornerback play, and then complemented by a pass rush. And in today's NFL, that's definitely what you have to have. Zim would not hesitate to draft first and second round corners. He loved to have those cover corners because he felt like it shrunk the field and put quarterbacks and receivers in a little bit of pressure situations there. And it's like the hand fitting the glove. A little bit of an extra time in coverage, blanketing receivers, lets the pass rush get there. And then the pass rush, if it wins quickly, can help the defensive backs by, not even allowing the quarterback time to go through his progression to read. So he's a big believer that those are the two spots. And he started with the secondary. In his mind, you have to have good cover corners. And that'll make your pass rush look better on a more consistent basis. But he was very impressed with the H boys. There's no question about it. Hendrickson came over to Mike Zimmer and said, hey, he introduced himself, and he said, I just want to say you're a legend, coach. And that made Zim feel pretty good. And then he saw Sam Hubbard coming off the field, and he just said how much he admires his effort and hustle every single snap. There's no time, no plays that Sam Hubbard takes off and doesn't give maximum effort every single time. And that made Sam Hubbard swell up, I think, and feel pretty good about the way he was playing football. And once again, those edge rushers showed up in practice, and the battle rages on for backup situations and back of the roster situations for edge rushers. But that's one of the position groups that's going to be very interesting when they line up against the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think you're going to see, like we talked about multiple times now, Dave, I don't think you're going to see starters. I don't think you're going to see him take a snap. Khalid Kareem was activated today off the reserve list, so I'm not sure he'll be able to ramp up in time to get any snaps against the Arizona Cardinals. But he's another edge guy, young edge guy, that can give them some good snaps. Cam Sample has shown himself on the edge and inside at defensive tackle. He's shown he can handle both of those position groups. Zach Carter the same way. The rookie they drafted out of Florida, he continues to flash. Jeffrey Gunter, it is going to be a battle royale. There is no question about it. At those, who's going to be the guys that end up filling out those last edge spots? Joseph Asai, out of Texas, like we talked about. He's Wyatt Hubert. Osai was the third-round pick last year. Hubert, the seventh-round pick last year. Those two guys were drafted to help the edge situation. They both got injured and couldn't really demonstrate much. So they're virtually rookies. And then you look at the Gunter, who was drafted in the seventh round this year, Jeffrey Gunter, another one. So there's a myriad of guys they're going to be looking at. They're going to be evaluating who's going to come up with the most consistent snaps, who's going to make the big play, who's going to flash. The tight end position is going to be interesting to watch against the Arizona Cardinals because Drew Sample is going to be out for a couple of weeks. He was walking around with a brace on today, and he dodged a bullet, though. He didn't have his foot planted in the ground when he was hit, because if it's planted in the ground and you get hit, that can be a serious ligament damage right there. Well, he was rolling over a pile, so his foot was off the ground, and he got hit. So it's almost like a whiplash type thing. His leg's in the air and he get hit. There's a little whiplash effect, but it still strained some ligaments in there. So he'll only miss maybe a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. But then that makes a situation where when guys aren't practicing, others are going to get more snap opportunities. So who's going to take advantage of those snap opportunities? Thaddeus Moss, Scotty Washington, a former wide receiver trying to beef up and play some tight end at 6'5", 250 pounds. Mitchell Wilcox is probably the guy who's going to move up to the number 2 tight end position. And so I'm not sure how much they'll play Hayden Hurst, but in my mind, that means Mitchell Wilcox is going to get quite a few snaps. Will Eubanks, Will Rigg, who's going to take snaps at the tight end position without Drew Sample out there? So that one's going to be an interesting to watch because that battle rages on. That battle continues. Is the third tight end on somebody else's roster? Is the lower on the roster level edge rush guy on somebody else's roster? So these guys that we're talking about at the tight end position, at the edge rush position, trying to make either the roster or the practice squad, in the secondary, anywhere you want to talk about. It starts against the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to practice reps on tape is one thing. Game reps on tape is something totally different. They want to get as many game reps as they possibly can. They want them to be positive. They want to have some splash plays on those game tapes. And, they'd like to do it not just one preseason game, but start stacking games. Play well on 3 preseason games, and you might, if you don't make the Cincinnati Bengals roster, there's 31 other rosters that you might be considered for, or there's other professional leagues, not as high level as the National Football League, but like we talked about many times in the past, the Canadian Football League, the USFL, there's the XFL. There's all kinds of opportunities where you can keep your professional career alive. So that's really what these 3 preseason games are about in my mind. We know who's going to be in the starting lineup pretty much for the Cincinnati Bengals. The only quote potential starters that might play in my mind in the preseason are positions they're not sold on yet. They still haven't really decided this is my locked-in starter. Every position that they have a locked-in starter, they're not going to play, in my mind, in the preseason at all. If they do, it's going to be very, very minimally. So the battle for those spots start against the Arizona Cardinals, and these guys are fighting for their football lives. So it should be, good matchups. It shouldn't be a blowout situation. I think that's going to be the case around the National Football League, not just with the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think it's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals guys trying to make the football team on the back end of the roster on the practice squad going against the Arizona Cardinals number ones. I don't think it's going to be that way at all. And so I think it'll be competitive football. It'll be fun to watch. And you'll see guys trying to lengthen their professional careers as long as they possibly can. You'll see the beginning of not only the Bengals roster, but every roster in the National Football League start being formed, because the biggest evaluator, the biggest thing that you look at is how do guys play in games. Everything counts. Practice reps count. Everything counts. The game reps, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the competitive environment lives, and that's where you can make your projections. But we'll see. We'll see how it all starts to work out this Friday at Paul Brown Stadium, Dave.
One of my questions, Dave, is, you talk about that back end of the roster, and we spoke about that during the live stream. In my, memory here in recent years, it's always been Bengal fans have been watching the waiver wire to see who got released, the Bengals could go out and get. And now you have to feel NFL teams are paying very close attention the other way around, what the Bengals are going to let go because of the influx of talent just in the last couple years. As a former player, how hard is it when you start getting to that back end of the roster and wondering what your future is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, it's a uber competitive environment, obviously. I mean, every team in the NFL doesn't have the same strength at every position group, from, the starters down to the, 1 through 10 in the offensive line. It's not some have better offensive line talent on the back end than others. Some have better talent on the back end of their tight end roster than others. Some have better talent, at the linebacker position than others. So that's the biggest challenge right now for the personnel department, is they're looking around the National Football League at every single roster and seeing who has depth at roster spots the Bengals may have a need. And can you match that up with, do they have a need or roster spot where the Bengals have roster depth? So in that situation, you might be able to consummate a trade. And we talked about it before. When they traded for B.J. Hill at the end of the preseason, last year, that wasn't just done 2 days before the end of the final cutdown. That was done like 2.5 weeks beforehand. All that started. They talked to the Giants. They talked to other teams that had strength in the interior of their defensive line, and they tried to assess where the needs were, if they were going to be able to consummate a trade. So all that's going on right now. And as a player, you don't know any of that stuff. All you're doing is you're out there just fighting for your life, man, just trying to keep your head above water every single day and do the best job you possibly can, because, you might say, all right, Well, we're loaded. We're loaded. If I'm an offensive lineman, rookie offensive lineman, trying to make this team, or let's pick another team. Let's pick a team that has, like the Cleveland Browns, have a top 5 offensive line, and you're up in Cleveland you're not going to break into that starting lineup. You might not even break into the top 8 or 9. Well, there are other teams around the league, though, where if you show yourself well enough, you might be able to break into their top 8 or 9, or you can definitely make their practice squad. So that's what you're doing. You're not trying to worry about, boy, will it be this team? You want to make the team that you're in camp with, that's for sure, but you might end up having to prove yourself all over again if you are not one of the final guys that were kept in the final cutdown and then brought back. That's the thing. Once you clear waivers, you can be brought back to the 16-man practice squad. So it's a multiple-step process, and you're on that roller coaster, man. You're on that big roller coaster ride, and it can be stressful. You might be married with a family with kids, and man, when you're on that roller coaster, it can be very stressful for sure.
David, at this point, could you name a maybe most valuable camp performer, one from offense and one from defense, that really caught your eye, as far as maybe even a guy that fans aren't even thinking about, but who has stood out early in camp on each side of the ball?
Yeah, I think it's too early. It's only about 3 or 4 days into pads. I think once we get into starting to play preseason games, it's obvious that the best players on the team are still going to be the best players in the team. Jamar Chase makes plays that are just you just drop your mouth wide open when he makes some of the plays he makes. A healthy Joe Burrow obviously is a phenomenal player. We haven't seen him a lick yet. McPherson has had as dominant a camp at his position as anybody, but a lot of football players on the roster would be like, all right, well, you can't kickers a separate. That's a separate entity. You can't group them in. Well, hell, I'll tell you what, he puts points on the board, and this sucker doesn't miss. I was talking to him about it. The last time he missed a field goal was one just before the 65-yarder last weekend, and it hit the upright. So it wasn't like he blew it badly. It just hit the inside of the upright and didn't go through. It was like 47 or 48 yarder. This guy has hit everything pure. It's unbelievable. And he said that he doesn't alter his swing. He just swings the same. If you try to overswing, just like in golf, you get out of your rhythm and get out of your timing and overswing, it's going to have diminishing returns. And this guy is just hitting everything. He'll hit a 47-yarder that looks like it'd be good from 67. It's 2/3, it's almost 3/4 of the way up the net, well behind the goalpost. So he swings the same at everything, and doesn't try to alter his explosiveness or whatever else. He just takes the same approach, goes through the same mechanics, and strikes everything as pure as he can. He's having an unbelievable camp. And so but I think we'll see some of these guys that are trying to work their way into the starting lineup, or make sure that they make the special teams plans that Darren Simmons has for opponents. They have to show up in the game, because special teams, it is all dummy stuff. There's no live separating from blocks and tackling people. So Darren Simmons might think he knows who some of the special team stars are, and all you have to do is go back to last year, and Morgan Stanley and Mike Thomas and guys like that. They're going to be, Trey Flowers. They're going to be amongst his better special teams players again, but they won't really be taking special team snaps in the preseason. And then we'll see who is taking the special team snaps and who makes plays, and then we'll be able to make a better evaluation. So right now, so little of it, if any of it, they've had maybe 2 periods of live football, which included tackling, taking people to the ground. All I can say is this, Dave, that I think that the personnel department and everybody involved with bringing these guys to camp have done a pretty darn good job of making proper evaluations and making sure that these guys can compete and belong. I'll put it this way. I haven't seen anybody that, over the first couple of weeks of training camp, what the hell is that guy doing here? There's none of that. Everybody that's here belongs in a National Football League camp. So I think I think the roster is pretty darn deep. And I do think that, teams are going to be maybe picking over the Bengals roster when they make cuts. We'll see.
Yeah, big difference. Evan McPherson compared to what was going on in Jacksonville, as the Jaguars had a rookie kicker just during warmups missed so badly. He hit Dave Campo. He had other people running for their lives, and he ended up getting cut pretty quickly. So big difference. But he is Dave Lapham. You have been in the trenches. Everything brought to you by First Star Logistics. Again, if you're looking for a new career, be sure to check out the folks at First Star Logistics by going to firststarlogistics.com. Dave, as always, great talking Bengals football with you. Getting excited, even though it's preseason. Football is here.
Friday night, Dave. Kick it off Friday night. So they'll work hard tomorrow. They have Tuesday off. Work pretty strenuously Wednesday. Back it off on Thursday. Game night Friday night. We'll see how it flows.
Appreciate everybody listening to In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. Be sure to check out everything on the YouTube channel, and you can also find this in the audio form wherever you get your podcast. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.